Okay, so welcome back. Today we introduced matrices last time. So today we will continue with matrices. I gave you examples of matrices. So you have a matrix A, and it's an array of numbers, or it's an array of scalars, m rows and n columns, right? So it's a rectangular array. You can think of this as just a stretched out vector of m times n entries, broken up, chopped up into many parts, and put one under the other. You want, right? But so now the point is that it's far more than just recording a long list of vectors in some rectangular way. It does. You can exploit this to solve to do many things, right? So okay. So we had given examples of matrices like the identity matrix n cross n, the one matrix n cross n, zero matrix n cross n, etc. Okay. Okay. So today let's start with some more operations on matrices, matrix operations. Right. So for example, you can have, let's say, 0, 1, 1, 2 plus 0, 3, 1, 1. So basically, you can add two matrices, provided the dimensions are the same number of rows and the same number of columns, and addition is entry-wise. So 0 plus 0 is 0, 1 plus 3 is 4, 2 and 3. And I mean, I'm writing down 3 and 4. So you might think these are integers, but I could also just by 3, I could denote 3 is just 1 plus 1 plus 1 in the field F. And 4 is 1 plus 1 plus 1 plus 1 in the field F, and so on. Okay? So that's what I mean by 3 and 4. And then this equation makes sense in every field. Okay, so this is 1. Another is scalar multiplication. C times, let's say, 0, 1, 1, 2 is 0. So anything times 0 is 0. That's homework 1. C times C is C and 2C. And 2C just means C plus C. Okay. So addition, scalar multiplication. There are some other things like transpose, which I don't think I've defined yet. So I will define the transpose later today. But you can also then do multiplication. And that's the most important one. This is addition. This is scalar multiplication. And this is matrix multiplication. And this is definitely, I think, the most important among these operations. Right? So what is matrix multiplication? It means basically, the simplest one is called an inner product or a dot product. So for example, the dot product, okay, which is basically a row times a column. I don't remember if I said that in my previous lecture at the end, but anyway, let's say that. So let's say A1, A2, AN, and you know how to take dot products. First of all, this must have the same number of entries, B1, B2, Bn, and then this is defined to be A1, B1 plus A2, B2 plus dot product, AN, Bn. Or in other words, summation I goes from 1 to n, AI, Bi. Okay? This is the definition of a dot product, of a product of a row and a column, a row vector and a column vector. The point is, this is enough. If you know this definition, then you know the entire matrix multiplication. More generally, if you have A, which is, let's say, m cross n, and let's say m cross p, and B is q cross n, then A times B is defined only when every row of the matrix A has the same number of entries as every column of the matrix B. But how many entries are there in the row? It is precisely the number of columns. How many entries are there in the column? It's precisely the number of rows. So this number here must be equal to this number here. So this is defined. only when if P equals Q, okay, and then the product is defined as follows. And then A times B is A. So basically every P and Q, if they're equal, then every row times every column is a scalar. And that's what you put in the corresponding position. And so A times B is actually an M cross L matrix. With I comma j entry, with ij entry, AB, ij is defined to be, what is it defined to be? It's the ith row of A dot product the jth column of B. So it is AI1, AI2, AIP multiplied by BP1, BP2, BPJ. Something is very wrong here. Something is incredibly wrong here. Yeah, it's B1, P, B2, sorry, B1J. The jth column, right? So the jth column is the second quarter is always J. B1J, B2J, dot dot dot, BPJ. Okay? Which is just, again, I'll write it down like this. In summation notation, it is summation, let's say K goes from 1 to P, AIK, BKJ. Okay, that is the definition of matrix multiplication. Let's do an example. Okay, so let's do an example. So let's say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, minus 1, 0, and 1. Okay, let's do one more column. So we have two columns. 1, 0, minus 1. So the way you remember this is, again, rows first, columns next. So rows and columns. This is 2 rows and 3 columns. This is 3 rows and 2 columns. And so you write this down as a 2 by 2 matrix. So what is the 1th entry? It's the first row dot product of the first column. So 1 times minus 1 plus 2 times 0 plus 3 times 1. So that's just 3 minus 1, which is 2. The first row, second column is 1, 2, 3, this one. So this is, okay, I'm going to claim it's minus 2. And the reason it's minus 2 is obvious. I don't need to do the calculation. This vector is negative of this vector. So the dot product will be negative of the dot product. Right? Because when you take the dot product here, if all of these are minus BIs, then the minus comes out. And so you just get the negative. So if I know this is 2, then that is minus 2. Similarly, let's do 4, 5, 6. So minus 4 plus 0 plus 6 is again 2. And then this would be minus 2. Okay, so that's how you calculate the dot product of two. That's how you calculate the product of two matrices, provided the number of columns of the first matrix equals the number of rows of the second. Otherwise, the product is not defined. Okay, so that is the next definition. Okay, great. So, so in general, again, let me even say that. So, in general, or let's put it this way. I'll write it down this way. So, suppose I have a matrix. Let me write down the rows of the first matrix as U1 transpose. Remember, I prefer to use all my vectors as column vectors. So therefore, I have to write down transpose is for rows. Okay, so let's write this down. So U1 transpose, U2 transpose, UM transpose. There are M rows in my matrix. And then V1, excuse me. V1, V2, Vn. Again, each, so this is a M cross P matrix. So each each of these row vectors has p columns, and each of these column vectors has p rows. And this is equal to this big matrix. So the 1,1th entry is U1 transpose V1 dot product. The 1,2th entry is U1 transpose V2, and then U1 transpose Vm, Vn. And then similarly U2 transpose V1, U2 transpose V2, U2 transpose Vn. UM transpose V1, UM transpose V2, UM transpose Vn. And so that's the general picture. You take the ith row, which is Ui transpose times Vj, the jth column, and that is the matrix multiplication. Okay, so blah blah blah. So now the next question obviously is, just like we saw that matrix addition you can do, like A plus B, and that's just adding entries, and adding the matrices entry by entry, position by position. So it is pretty obvious that because you are just adding scalars, A plus B and B plus A give you the same matrix. Because entry by entry, Aij plus Bij equals Bij plus Aij. Addition is commutative in the field. Now the question is similarly, does this happen for matrix multiplication? The question is matrix multiplication commutative? Of course, wherever defined. Okay. So first of all, the answer is very clearly no. Why is the answer no? The answer is no because you can very easily find two matrices whose product, even without any calculations, you can say is not the same. Okay, so again, I will pause the video for a couple of seconds, and those of you who want to think about this for a couple of seconds can pause it right now. And for those of you who just want to enjoy the show, so the answer is no. So this is the easy question. I'm going to ask you the more subtle question on the next board. Why is it no? For instance, if you have A is 3 by 2 and B is 2 by 3. Right? Okay, well, first of all, if B is 2 by 1, or maybe even 2 by 2, let's say, right? A is 3 by 2, B is 2 by 2. Then A times B is defined, but B times A is not even defined. So first of all, already there in the definition itself, you might have problems. Let's call this example A. Then AB is defined, but BA is not defined. So BA cannot equal AB because it doesn't even make sense. Okay, so that's the first reason why you cannot matrix multiplication is not commutative. But now suppose it is defined, right? Suppose AB and BA are both defined. Then can they be the same? Then do they have to be the same? And the answer is again no, for again a simple reason. Even if say A was 3 by 2, B was 2 by 3, then AB, whatever matrix it is, I don't care, but it has to be 3 by 3 because the 2's sort of cancel and you get 3 by 3. But BA is, of course, it is not 3 by 3, it is 2 by 2. So how can a matrix with 9 entries equal a matrix with 4 entries? So even there, it's not defined. So the real case that is actually subtle, this is really the actual question that I want to ask you, is what if they are both of the same size? What if they are both square, 3 by 3 and 3 by 3, or 2 by 2 and 2 by 2? Then the products also have the same size. Now say A and B belongs to F to the n cross n. Okay, where n is bigger equals 1. Then is AB equal to BA? Always equal to BA. That is the real question. So here again, of course, one answer is obvious. If n equals 1. If n equals 1, then these are just 1 by 1, meaning they are just scalars. If they are scalars, then multiplication in the field is commutative, and therefore AB equals BA. But the question really again, so again the question is, what if n is bigger than 1? If n is bigger equals 2, then this is not true. Then the answer is no. Let me show you an example for a 2 by 2 matrices, but you can easily from there construct an example for a 3 by 3 or higher matrix. You can try to do it yourself. So e.g. let's look at 1 0 0 2, okay, and then let's say 1 3 0 1. Okay, you can check that this one equals. You know what to do, right? You just do this rows times columns. I can actually tell you 3 entries right away. This is 1, this is 2, this is 0, and then so basically this is to do with something called upper triangular matrices, and then here you get just 3. Okay, because again it's the first 1 2, so first row times second column, 1 times 3 plus 0 times 1. But 1 3 0 1 is 1 0 0 2. Now if I do it this way, what do I get? Let's see. Maybe I get the same thing. I don't know. So again, I still get 1 2 and 0 here. The only question is, what do I get here? And here I get 6. Okay? I get 6 here. And so you see, the 3 entries are all the same, but the 4th entry here is 1 is 3 and 1 is 6. So they are not equal. So AB does not equal BA. And that's what happens in general. Multiplication of matrices does not commute. Addition, of course, does. Okay. Okay, so now let's talk about some properties of matrix multiplication. Oops, sorry. Sorry, properties of matrix operations. So again, just a few simple properties, like addition is commutative. So maybe I'll start. No, okay. Fine. I'll give you a few properties. We'll write down the formal properties later on. So 1 second. I should try to have a pen here. Pen here. Okay. So let me start with lemma, just for fun. So remember there was this identity matrix, right? And I said that it was called the identity for a reason. So lemma. So if you take A, which is m cross n, and its identity matrix, which is n cross n, then this is A. Okay, and this is true for all matrices A in F to the m cross n. And for all integers m and n, then it equals 1. So how do you show that? So this is the product. A times identity equals A. And that's why it's called the identity matrix, because it's the multiplicative identity. How do you show such an equality? How do you show such a result? Clearly this is m cross n, this is n by n. So the matrix on the other side is m by n. That's fine. Matrix multiplication is defined. How do you show this equality? So the way to show it is literally to show it entry by entry. So proof. And I'm working out this proof because then you will get similar proofs to show in the homework. In homework 2. Okay, so proof. So let's compare the the I comma j entry. Compare the I comma j entries. Okay, so on the left hand side, the LHS I comma j. How much is that? That is the ith row of AI1, AI2, AIN times the jth column of the identity 0, 0, 0, 1, 0, 0, 0. What is the jth column? The jth column means this is in position j. The 1 is in position j in the identity, right? The first column of the identity matrix, remember the identity matrix was just 1, 0, 0, 0, 1, 0, 0, 0, 1. Right? This is the 3 by 3. The first column, the 1 is in the first place. The second column, the 1 is in the second place, and so on. So the jth column of the identity matrix, the 1 is in the jth place. So what happens? You get AI1 times 0 plus AI2 times 0 plus so on. And only the jth entry here is what you multiply by the 1. And everything else is multiplied by 0. So you literally just get the jth entry, which is Aij. But Aij, maybe I should write it on the next line. So what you get is Aij. But look at the right hand side, that is the matrix A. What is the ijth entry of A? It is exactly the right, it's exactly Aij. So because the equality holds for all I and j, therefore we are done. That's the proof. So it's a very simple proof. There's nothing much to prove in it. But it's the, I wanted to write down the proof for you guys so you see how it's done. Okay? So it's the right hand side ijth entry, left hand side ijth entry, they're equal. Both are equal to Aij, and so here. Okay, that is one lemma. Okay, the next one I want to tell you is about. Okay, now it's time to tell you about the properties of matrix multiplication. Maybe let's call it a theorem. The following f to the n cross n. So take any field, take any f, m, n. So any field in any integers bigger equals 1. Maybe I'll say mn bigger equals 1. Sorry. So I'm going to look at multiple things. I'm going to look at f to the m cross n, f to the n cross p, because I want to talk about matrix multiplication as well, and field f. I'll fix my field, but I won't fix my sizes. Okay? Has the following properties. The space of matrices. So strictly speaking, I should take a union over these f to the m cross n, because I will look at matrices from different spaces. But anyway, so the first couple of properties will work only in f to the n cross n, which is for a fixed m and n. Okay, so, and I already said that, but let me write them down formally. So 1, addition is commutative, so a plus b equals b plus a. So this is commutative for all a and b in f to the m cross n. So if you have any two matrices of the same size, then the addition is commutative. Similarly, addition is associative. A plus b plus c equals a plus b plus c. And here I can add them in either order. So first I add these two and then the third, or I add these two and then the third. So associative for all a, b, c in f to the m cross n. Okay. The third, of course, is that if you multiply, if you add 0 matrix, then you get a plus 0, m cross n equals 0 plus a. Sorry, I don't need to say 0 plus a because addition is commutative. This is equal to a. That is obvious. For all a in f to the m cross. So these are all sort of the addition laws. It's very much like the field axioms. Right? The addition part is very much like the field axioms. It's the multiplication part where things get trickier. Okay, but one more probably. I guess minus A. So minus A is the matrix where all the entries are minus Aij, which is just minus 1 times A. Okay. But then it's obvious. So let me not say it. Fine. So then we have the matrix. So then here is one property that you actually have to prove. If AB and BC are defined, as I already told you, matrix multiplication is not commutative, but it actually is associative provided everything is defined. So if AB and BC are defined, which means that so A is like F to the M cross N, and B is like N cross P, and C is like P cross Q. So B times C is defined, A times B is defined. Then you can multiply ABC and you can multiply them in any order, it will still give you the same answer. That's what the theorem is. Then AB, first AB and then times C is equal to A times first BC. So this is a homework problem which you have to do, and you have to verify this basically entry by entry. So that's why I wrote this proof down, just so you know what to do. Okay. The next one is you already saw. That's what you saw here. A times identity. So if A is M cross N, and you multiply by identity M, that's the same as multiplying by identity M times A to the M cross N. Sorry, this is identity N. And this is equal to A for all A. You know what to say. Okay, so that is. I only showed this equals A. I did not show that this equals A, but that is pretty much fairly straightforward. Exact same proof. And then we have the distributive laws. And because multiplication is not commutative, I have to write it down both ways. Actually, I will only write it down one way. And then I will ask you to prove the other one. So A times B plus C. Actually, no, you have to prove both of them. So let me just write it down. It's AB plus AC. Provided everything is defined. So I'm going to skip saying whenever all matrices are defined. Maybe I should say here. Whenever all expressions are defined. And only when these things make sense can you equate them. And similarly, B plus C times A, again, provided this is defined, is B times A plus C times A. Okay, so for all A, B, C, blah, blah, blah. Again, I won't write this down. So for all A and for all B, so B comma C. So B comma C are in the same space because it's B plus C. A has to be correspondingly different. Okay, so these are some properties of matrices, and so you see something that is missing. Right? Okay, I said that multiplication is not commutative, fine, but we do see multiplication is associative. We see a multiplicative identity, just like an additive identity. But we see something is missing. What is it that's missing? It is the idea of a multiplicative inverse. The additive inverse is clear. You multiply the same matrix times minus 1. You get what is called minus A. And A plus minus A is 0. Or minus A plus A is 0 by commutative. Multiplication is where the problem happens. So let us address that. So what does it mean to say that a matrix is invertible? Point is, it's not always. Let me show you. Yeah, let's do it carefully. I'll erase this later. So multiplicative inverse. Let's call it invertibility. That's really what it is. The phenomenon is. Because the definition, so we will define it in the same way that we define reciprocal for field element. Okay, so we say that A, so let's say a matrix A in F to the M cross n. I'm assuming the matrix is rectangular. Okay, I don't want to make any distinction right now. We will get to that part later. Is invertible. If there exist matrices B and C both in F to the n cross n, so the other way around, such that B times A is the identity matrix, but of what order? It's n cross n, and A times C is the identity matrix of what order? M cross n. That is the definition of an invertible matrix for us in this course. Sounds a bit strange. We have never seen rectangular matrices being invertible, and of course, I'm going to immediately tell you that at least over real numbers, over rational numbers, over complex numbers, over any field of characteristic 0, if a matrix is invertible, then M must be equal to N. It must be square. But what about over finite fields? Can you have rectangular, non-invertible, rectangular, invertible, but non-square matrices? We will see. For now, let's just talk about characteristic 0. Before that, so let me tell you a few. First of all, an example and a non-example. Right? So over a field, let's write down a few. E.g., let's say M equals N equals 1. This is the first example. Right? So if you have 1 by 1 matrix, then that's just the same as a scalar. And then the scalar is invertible if and only if it has a reciprocal, because B times A is 1. So that means it's the reciprocal of A as a scalar. So yeah, here matrices are scalars. In F. Okay. And A is invertible if and only A is non-zero. And if A is a non-zero scalar in the field, then it's invertible because the reciprocal, the inverse is precisely the reciprocal. Let's call it, let's say A equals alpha. Is invertible if and only alpha is not zero, because then B equals C equals alpha inverse. And for any non-zero element, you have an inverse map. What happens when you multiply two 1 cross 1 matrices? You just get the inverse. You just get the product, right? The alpha times alpha inverse is 1, and 1 is the identity matrix of size 1 cross 1. That's correct. This is when you have scalar matrices. What happens if you have, so basically every non-zero scalar is invertible. What happens, let's say, if n equals 2? Can you have a non-zero scalar? Does every non-zero matrix have to be invertible? And the answer is no. Because so first of all, the identity matrix is invertible. Identity 2 by 2, or let me even say m equals n, not equals 2. I'll give you an example of an invertible matrix. Identity matrix n cross n is invertible. Right? Because if you just take B equals C to be the identity again, then identity times identity is identity. That's all. Because identity times anything is itself. Okay. Great. And then let's look at some more examples. One second. Write this down. Okay. So you can do lots of other things, but here is an example that doesn't work. Let's see. An example that doesn't work is let's say 0, 0, 0, 1 is not inverted. So first of all, this is non-zero because there is an entry that's non-zero. It's neither 0 nor invertible. This is short for invertible. Not invisible, but invertible. Yeah. Because you can't multiply. So let's check. So check. If you multiply 0, 0, 0, 1, this is 2 cross 2. So you would want another 2 cross 2 matrix, let's say ABCD. Can you ever get the identity matrix? Well, check. You get 0, 0, C and D. So, and how can this be the identity matrix? Because this entry has to be 1. And in the field axioms, we know by the field axioms, 0 is never equal to 1. So this is why this matrix is not important. Okay. So you can do many such things. On the other hand, you can say something like this. This matrix, if you take 1, A, 0, 1, or any scalar A, then this is invertible and its inverse equals 1. I mean, so is this by the inverse I mean B equals C. If this is my matrix A, then B equals C equals 1 minus A 0, 1. This works. So then indeed this matrix is invertible. Okay, so there are lots of examples of invertible matrices and of non-invertible ones. In this course, we will actually classify, we will find this, as I said, this magic number called the determinant and prove that a matrix is invertible if and only if its determinant is non-zero. It's going to be a scalar. But for now, let us look at some more basic properties, given invertibility. So the basic properties are simply that the following. So let's call this a proposition. Maybe I'll call it a theorem. Okay. So the theorem says that if you have, suppose, so let's start with an invert. Oh, okay, I need a definition. Fine. I'll write down the theorem, I'll write down the definition, and then we will talk about how the definition is useful in proving the theorem. So say MN and then A in F to the M cross N is invertible. Okay. 2 points. One, I said that there exists B and C. I did not say these are unique. There could exist multiple different B's and multiple different C's. Remarkably, the first statement is going to say, regardless of the field, regardless of the sizes, if A is invertible, if there exists at least one B and at least one C like this, then pick all the B's and all the C's. They already have the same size, but we can check they're all equal. There is only one matrix. This B and C is never different. They have to be equal the same matrix, same rectangular matrix. Right? Then all choices of B and C as in the definition are equal. It's not just that all the B's are equal and then all the C's are equal to some different matrix. No, they're all equal to one common matrix. Okay? This matrix, this common matrix is called the inverse. Called the inverse of it. And it is denoted by A inverse. A inverse. Part 2, if the field has characteristic 0, then n equals n. If the characteristic of f is 0, then M equals N. Okay, so that is the theorem. Okay, great. So let's write down the proof. So before I write down the proof, as I said, I will need to give you a definition of something called the trace. I mean, I need the trace for the second part, not for the first. But let's give the definition and then write down the proof. So definition is a little bit weak. The trace of a square matrix. So I need a square matrix for this over any field is trace of A. Definition equals A11 plus A22 plus A and N. Okay, just add up the diagonal entries of A. Okay, and now there's a homework problem which you will see later. Sorry. If you have any two matrix, if A is M cross N and B is M cross M, these are not necessarily the same size, right? But then, you see, then already we talked about this. Right? A times B and B times A need not have the same size. A times B is M by M, B times A is N by N. They don't have the same size. But regardless, they have the same trace. And the trace of AB equals the trace of B. Even if they don't have the same size, or even if they do have the same size but aren't equal, the traces are the same. Okay, so that's a homework problem. You have to compute stuff and verify, but that's fine. So now let's with the trace in mind, let us prove this theory, proof of theorem. So let's first write down part 1. Okay, let me show you. So I will explain I'm going to say what I'm going to prove informally. So I'm going to show you B equals B prime. What does that mean? It means if I have two different B's that work for the invertible map, B times A is identity and B prime times A is identity, then B must be equal to B prime. That's what I'm saying. How do you prove that? So you write down B. Okay, you start with B. And basically I'm going to write down B equals B times AC. As I told you, sorry, let's do it step by step. Let's go slower. B equals B times identity. I'm not even going to write down the dimensions. Basically, you know that this is N cross M, therefore this must be the identity matrix of size M cross M, and so on. But I won't write these subscripts. You can think about them yourself, because by now I've told you what is matrix multiplication. So assume that every term here is defined. So anything times identity is itself. So B is B times identity. But now what is identity? We know that because the C exists, this is equal to B times A times C. A times C is the identity matrix. And now because multiplication is associative, I write this down, which is B times A times C. So we just do it one step at a time using these matrix operations. This is just associative, which is another homework problem of yours. This is just the identity axiom, that's obvious, and this is the definition. Right? A matrix A is invertible means there is a C such that A times C is identity. But now you see B times A is identity again. This is again some definition of invertibility times C. Okay? And now I do the exact same thing in reverse order using B prime. So start going backwards. It's B prime times A times C because B prime times A is identity. Suppose you had a different B prime. So maybe I should have said that. Yeah. So say maybe I should have called it this one. Say B times A equals B prime times A equals identity. Then this. Start with B and I'm going to go to B prime. So that's when I say I'm proving B equals B prime, I mean suppose B times A equals B prime times A equals identity, and we know A times C is also identity, then I want to prove that B equals B prime. So you start with B equals B identity, BAC is BA times C, identity times C, and now I go the reverse. It's B prime A times C, then you go backwards, so associative, this is equal to B prime times A times C. But A times C is identity, so you get B prime times identity, and anything times identity is itself. So I started with B and I just went through a bunch of different operations to get to B prime. So it's a fun kind of exercise like that. Okay, how about if I show B equals, so I'm not going to show C equals C prime, that is left for you. Let me show you B equals C. And again, this time I won't write down, suppose this equals that. B equals C is actually much shorter. B equals C is half the length. If I say C equals C prime, similar. B, oops, I should have said, sorry. Everything here is part 1. There is no part 2, part 3. Part 1 is the entire assertion that all of them are equal. So this is one step, this is another step, this is the third step. And this is the end of it. Every choice of B is equal, every choice of C is equal, and all the B's and C's, the common choices are both equal. All you do is you just say B times, so we start with B. B is B times identity, which is B times A times C. This order, but then by the distributive law, by the associativity. So this is definition. This is just the definition of identity. This is the verification of identity that we saw. Associativity, you get BA times C, but now this is identity times C. Again, by the definition, and anything times C itself. So we just check that B times A times C. If you expand out into different ways, then you get B or you get C. And so that is this common this common matrix A inverse, which is called the inverse matrix. Okay? So now for part 2, this proves part 1. Why is the M equal to N? Well, so let's write this down. So you see A, so by the homework, so because B equals C, right? So B equals C equals A inverse. And this is N cross N. Let's multiply. So A times A inverse. This is so I want to say the trace of two matrices are equal, right? So let's put B to be A inverse. Right? B is anyway A inverse. The trace of A times A inverse. Okay, I'll do it this way. Trace of A times A inverse is the trace of A inverse times A. Right? Fine. What is A times A inverse? It is the identity matrix. But A is M cross N. So therefore, this is the identity matrix, which is M cross N. Trace of identity M. And on the other side, A inverse goes first. A inverse is N cross M. So this is the trace of the identity matrix N cross N. Okay. So on the one hand, you have the trace of identity matrix M cross N and N cross N. What is this? This is equal to 1 plus 1 plus 1 M times. Because the diagonal entries are all ones. This is equal to 1 plus 1 plus 1 N times. Right? So what you get is M in the field. So the point is, this is not equal to the integer M. So for example, if your field was a finite field, let's say a field of size 2, and this was 1 plus 1 4 times, then you get 1 plus 1 plus 1 plus 1, which is 4, but 4 equals 0, because when you divide by 2, the remainder is 0. So if you would get 4, but 4 doesn't mean 4 in the field, it means 0. So the point is, this is M and N, but these are what they mean in the field itself. Okay, so one should really say M times in F. Addition is in F, and here N times in F. Okay, so we get M equals N in the field. Okay. let's say m is bigger than n. So m minus n equals 0 in the field. But you see, remember, the field now has characteristic 0. So you are adding m minus n many ones plus 1 plus 1 plus 1, m minus n many times if m is bigger than n, and getting to 0. But you can never do that, right? You know that you can never add a positive number of ones and get to 0 in a characteristic 0 field. The definition of characteristic is that it will never get to 0. So the only way that this can happen is that m has to be equal to the number of ones here, and the number of ones here have to be equal, because otherwise you can cancel and you will get some positive number of ones equals 0, and that cannot happen. And since caret equals 0, what we get is that m equals n as integers. So meaning in the ring of integers in the set. And that's what we wanted to prove. That means these actual sizes are equal to each other. The number of ones is the size of this matrix, right? Those sizes are equal to one another, and that's what we wanted to prove in the theorem. Okay, so great. So that's the theorem. Okay, so that was all about invertible matrices. Now let me tell you a little something else about matrices. It has to do with triangular matrices. Okay, these are some very nice class of matrices which we will see and use also. Okay. Yeah. Okay, so triangular matrices. So definition: a square matrix let's say A in F to this. F is always an arbitrary field. A in F to the n cross n is okay. Let's give you three definitions. Upper triangular. I'll just call it triangular with an R here. If all so if you have a square matrix, then you have the 1, 1, 2, 2, 3, 3, 4, 4, 5, 5 entries. Every upper triangular means that all these entries below the main diagonal are 0. Lower triangular means all the entries above are 0, and so on. Okay, so what are these? This is like AM1. This is A1n. So if Aij equals 0 for all I less than j. Sorry, for all I bigger than j. Okay. Similarly, it's lower triangular. I'll just skip saying the word triangular. Lower triangular. If Aij equals 0 for all I less than j. Okay. And then it is diagonal if Aij equals 0 for both this and this. So terms above the diagonal are 0 and terms below the diagonal are 0. So only terms that are non-zero are on the main diagonal for all I not equal to. Either less than or bigger. All of those terms are 0. Okay. So here is another homework, I guess. Homework. So clearly, suppose all these terms are 0. Let's say all these terms are 0. The lower marks, right? It's upper triangular. When you add two such matrices, what happens to the entries here? You get 0 from this and 0 from this, so you get 0. So clearly, upper triangular, lower triangular, and even diagonal matrices are all closed under addition. So each of these three classes of matrices is closed under addition. I'll just say The remarkable thing is it is also closed under multiplication and dot. That is the remarkable thing. So addition is clear. Nevertheless, maybe worth writing down. Multiplication is not as clear, and that's what you have to verify. But all you have to do is suppose I bigger than j, look at a times b, ijth entry, and check that it is 0, and so on and so on. For upper triangle. Now the point is the proofs would seem to be almost the same, right? So how does one make not have? Suppose I ask you to write down all these three proofs, and I plan to, by the way. So how do you make sure that you don't want to write the same calculation 3 different times, right? Or 4 times. Here you have to do it once for I bigger than j and for I less than j. So first of all, you can deduce this one from these two. If you know that the product of two upper triangulars is upper triangular and product of two lower triangulars is lower triangular, from those two statements alone, without doing any calculations, you can deduce that the product of two diagonals is diagonal, figure it out. Secondly, if I know the calculation for upper triangular, can I, without doing any calculation, know this for lower triangular? You can. And there is a very useful trick to do this, and that is what we will see next. If I'm not wrong. Indeed, that is called taking the transpose. Yeah, so this is literally just a very, very useful tool, which is just literally just a reflection about the diagram. Let's see what it is. The definition. The transpose of a matrix A, which is in F to the n cross n, is the matrix which we denote by A transpose. It's A to the power T. The T stands for transpose in F to the n cross m with I comma j entry equal to a ji, not a ij. A ij is the ijth entry of A ji is the ijth entry of A transpose. So for example, it's literally just inverted. So basically 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 transpose. So this is 2 cross 3, 2 rows, 3 columns. This is 3 rows, 2 columns. The 1/1th entry is still 1. The 1/2th entry here, sorry, what is the 1/2th entry here? It is the 2/1th entry. So 4. What is the 2/1th entry here? It's the 1/2 entry here. So 2. And you can similarly fill in. Basically, rows become columns and columns become rows. That's what happens. Okay. So now here is the point, right? So clearly, a matrix is upper triangular if and only if its transpose is lower triangular. Okay, let me see this. This is not the one. Okay, so let me tell you now some properties of this transpose. Maybe I'll tell you one more definition while we're at it. I may or may not use it immediately. We will see this at the very end of the class. So let me tell you. A in F, a square matrix. So I don't need to say square, but I may as well. A in F to A, let's say n cross n, is symmetric if A equals A transpose. Okay, so if A equals A transpose, then the matrix is symmetric. Okay, so that is that. Now, what next? Okay, so now let's get to the transpose point. So the properties of the transpose. What are the properties? Well, they're very easy. It's just two properties I want to say. Well, first of all, okay, for example, let me tell you some examples. The identity matrix is the most famous symmetry, or the zero matrix as well, of course. But The zero matrix, the identity matrix are both symmetric. Okay. Okay, but anyway, there are just two properties of the transpose that you need to remember. This is trivial to prove, so I may not even ask you to prove it. The other one is not trivial to prove, but you can check. AB, if you take the transpose of a product, so this means that the product first of all is defined. I'm not saying the matrices are square. In all of this, I'm not saying the matrices are square. If A and B are rectangular matrices such that AB is defined, then AB transpose is actually equal to B transpose times A transpose. Whenever AB is defined, if A times B is defined. Okay, and similarly here one has to say if A plus B is defined. Okay, so these are the properties of the transpose. This already gives you some nice things. So for example, I think this will be a homework problem. Yes. Okay, so what are some properties of transposes? So there's a third one which is probably also homework, maybe or something. No, this one I'll actually prove for you. Fine. So if A is invertible, m cross n. No, I'm not saying it is square still. Is invertible. But then what we proved is that then there is a unique n cross m matrix called A inverse, right? Then A transpose, which is n cross m, is also invertible. And I can even tell you what the inverse is, right? So if some matrix is invertible, then you should ideally want to tell what that inverse is, right? So inverse exists, and it's very simple. You start with the inverse of A itself, take the transpose, and that is the inverse of A transpose. So you should really read this sentence, this equation carefully to understand that the two sides are different. Here you first take the transpose, and then that's a different sized matrix made possible. And you want to understand the inverse of that. Here you start with the matrix itself and take its inverse. This is not the inverse of A transpose, but this turns out to be the transpose of it. Oh, there's one more obvious property, which is what happens if you take the transpose of the transpose of A. What is A transpose transpose? Okay, and I will not even write this on the board. You guys can figure it out. Okay, okay, so proof of this of 3. Right, so how do you prove that this is this thing? You just need to verify that something times that A transpose times this candidate on both sides is the identity. Then there is at least one matrix B and one matrix C, both of which are this one, such that this happens, and so you're done. Right? So let's look at A transpose times this candidate matrix times the RHS, and check that this is equal to the identity. And similarly, the RHS being this thing times A transpose. Right? We have to verify that A transpose times this is identity, and this times A transpose is identity. And if we can verify that, then this matrix, whatever it is, satisfies the definition of the inverse. There exists a matrix this, and there exists a matrix this, such that A transpose times this is identity in either order. Okay, let's look at this one. This is A transpose times A inverse transpose. But now I use property B. It is A transpose. I start with the right hand side. Something transpose times something transpose is the product of those two in the reverse order transpose. So let's do this. This is A inverse times A in the reverse order transpose. But what is this A inverse times A? Since A is invertible, I don't say that A transpose is, but I know that A is. So this expression is precisely the identity. And now I can do transpose. And as we said, the identity is a symmetric matrix, so the identity transpose is the identity. You can check it. In fact, every diagonal matrix is symmetric. and these two are diagonal matrices. Okay, fine. Similarly, I mean, this is the same exact thing. This is A inverse transpose times A transpose, but that is equal to A times A inverse in the reverse order transpose, which is the identity transpose. It's there. And therefore, this whatever this right hand side is, it satisfies the properties of an inverse. So it is indeed the inverse by the previous theorem that we proved. So now, given that this is true, so now if you know this property, and if you have calculated expressed entry by entry, then the product of two upper triangular matrices is upper triangular. And using this without a single other calculation, you can prove that a product of two lower triangular matrices is lower triangular without using entry by entry calculation. So that's one very nice thing. Okay, there are some other properties that we will see, some such as let's see, more properties, more facts, I guess, or whatever. But actually, we will see that in the homework. Okay, so these are just simple facts, such as, for instance, AB inverse. So if I have A and B, look at, so there's an expression for the transpose. Suppose A and B are invertible, then this also has a very similar expression. This B inverse times A inverse. Okay, this is one property. Another is C times A. Well, from this you can already deduce that if you take the kth power, so you can multiply A, B, C, D, E, F, G, or A, assuming A is square, of course. Here I need to say A is n cross n. If you take the kth power and A was invertible, then the inverse of the kth power is exactly the kth power of the inverse. If for all k bigger than c. Similarly, if you take any constant times A, just a scalar multiple and take the inverse, as long as the constant is non-zero and A is invertible. Then this is again just the constant inverse reciprocal times A. Okay, so these are probably also like homework questions. Fine. Now let's get to, now I want to tell you something that is sort of generalizing this idea of matrix multiplication. It's an informal approach. I mean, it can be made fully rigorous, not probably, certainly can be made fully rigorous, but I will not actually do so. Okay, so let me tell you what it is. It has to do with something called partition matrices or block matrices. Okay. So what do I have to say? So for example, let me show you an example. Suppose I have two matrices 1, 0, 0, 1, 0, 0, 1. These entries are all completely ones and zeros. And then I multiply 1, 0, 1, 0, 0, 1. It's not just the entries below and on the diagonal, but one extra entry is 0. Okay? Then I don't actually need to multiply these in some sense to tell you that the answer is these are still going to be 1, 0, 0, 1. These are still going to be 0, 0. This will still be 1. And then this is actually A plus C and B plus C. Okay, so 7 out of the 9 entries I can do without actually looking at them, without doing any calculations, except remembering that the identity matrix is called the identity for that reason. Identity times anything is identity. Okay? So why? How can I do this? How did I do this? The idea is you think of these matrices also in some sense as 2 by 2 matrices, but where the entries are not quite scalars. The entries can be vectors or even matrices. I think of these in this partition. Okay. So because there are first two are rows, therefore the first two are columns. Then I put the barrier after the first two columns, because here I put the barrier after the first two. And similar. Okay, so now what do I do? So basically it's like saying I have a 2 by 2 matrix. It's called a 2 by 2 block matrix. It's not called a 2 by 2 matrix, it is 3 by 3. But this is a 2 by 2 block matrix, and these are the 4 different blocks. And the blocks are structured in such a way that I can write down something like this: A, B, C, D times A prime, B prime, C prime, D prime. And the blocks are structured in such a way that A times A prime is defined, A times this is defined, A times B prime is defined, C times A prime is defined, and C times this thing is defined as well. C times A prime and C times B prime are defined, D times C prime, D times D prime are defined, and so on. A prime, A B prime, and similarly C A prime and C B prime. And then as far as the others go, you get B B prime, B D prime, and then D. Sorry, B. This is C prime. D C prime, D D prime are all defined. The orders agree. The moment you have that, then you can actually multiply this matrix not entry by entry, but block by block in the exact same way. Okay? Then this product prime D prime C prime D prime actually equals exactly the same way as if you are multiplying scalars. These are no longer even of equal sizes. This is 2 by 2. This is 2 by 1. This is 1 by 2. This is 1 by 1. That's perfectly fine. It doesn't matter. The moment these entries are all defined, this product actually equals the 1/1th entry is A prime plus B C prime. The 1/2th entry is A B prime plus B D prime. And then you get the idea. C A prime plus D C prime, C B prime plus D B prime. This entry actually turns out to be. You can check this. Okay? You can check this. You can prove this. I won't. It takes a bit more. It's sort of a. There's nothing hard in the proof. It's just a notationally cumbersome result. The hardest part of writing the proof is to set up the notation. So that is why I won't write it down. But in particular, you see what happens here, right? Identity. So if I want the 1/1th entry here, it is the first row times the first column. This is identity times identity, which is identity, plus this one times 0. Well, anything times 0 is 0. So I just get identity plus 0, which is what I write. Now look at the second row, first column. This is the second row times the first column. So 0 times this plus 1 times 0. Both are so you get 0 plus 0, I get this. How about the second row, second column? Well, 0 times something, which is 0, plus 1 times 1. So I get 1. More generally, even better, you can see this is identity 1 and 0. This is like a upper triangular matrix. So when you multiply two upper triangular matrices, you know that the diagonal entries will actually multiply. The diagonal entry will multiply, and the bottom triangle part will be 0. So the only non-trivial one to wonder about is this one. That is the first row times the second column. So you get identity times CD plus AB times 1. And that's exactly what you get. Identity times CD plus AB times 1. But that is just, this is just identity. This is the identity 1 plus 1. This is identity 2 plus 2. So you just get CD plus AB. And that is exactly what we write. A plus C, B plus D, because addition is commutative. Okay? So that's the two calculation, and that's what it is. So these are the kinds of calculations that you can just use very quickly to understand block matrices. Okay, so you can use block matrices very quickly to simplify your calculation. So for example, actually, what happens if AB equals CD? Let's call this 1. Then this is the general principle, and the explanation of this entry is all that matter. Everything else is simple using the general principle. But now let us say, so maybe I'll write down facts now. Okay, so yeah, maybe I will write down facts. So just as I told you that the product of two diagonal matrices is diagonal, or triangular matrices is triangular. So let me say, let me first write definition and some properties. Definition A, K by K block matrix is something like this: is A11, A12, A1K. Sorry, why should I say K by K? I should say M cross N. A21. It's a huge matrix, each of which is a matrix. Each of the entries of that itself is a matrix. They're called the blocks. Where all Aij are matrices. With compatible sizes. What does it mean to have compatible sizes? It means the number of rows in each of these matrices is the same. So they all fit in one line. The number of rows in each of these matrices is the same. Similarly, the number of columns in each of these matrices is the same. And in each of these matrices is the same. So they all fit in the same line. So the total number of rows and columns is the summation of number of rows here cross the summation of number of columns here. Okay? So that's what I mean by compatible sizes. Okay, and then we say that, so this is number 1, we say number 2. Let's say n cross n block matrix is block upper triangular. Let's even give this a name, so let's call this matrix with the blocks Aij as above. Ij go from 1 to n is block upper triangular, lower triangular. Sorry, let's say upper triangular, lower triangular, diagonal. Block lower triangular. Block diagonal. I'll put one clause in parentheses, one clause in square brackets. If, okay, so block upper triangular, if Aij is 0 for all I upper, so M1, I bigger than J. Okay. Similarly, block lower triangular, if Aij equals 0 for all I less than J, and block diagonal if Aij equals 0 for all I not equals J. Okay? And then we have the standard, the same results. I won't ask you to prove them, but you are allowed to use them throughout the course. Homeworks, midterms, final, wherever. Okay, so fact. So block upper triangular or lower triangular or diagonal block matrices are closed. Oh, sorry, I should mention, provided they have compatible sizes. Provided with compatible block sizes. So they all have to be of the same sizes, or multiplication has to be defined, or addition has to be defined. The sizes are closed. Under addition and multiplication. Same. And let me give you an example to show you about, for instance, the multiplication. If I have, so let's say I have a 6 by 6 matrix, 1 0 0 1, 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 1, and then 2. Okay, so this is like a block diagonal matrix. 0 0 0 0 0 0. When I say 0, there are lots of, so this one has 2 rows and 3 columns. This has 3 rows and 2 columns, and so on. Okay, and now similarly, if I multiply this matrix by another block diagonal matrix, let's say, 1 second. 1 second, sorry. So 1 1 1 1 1 1 1. This is the identity matrix here. Let's say this is 3. Let's make this matrix here. This is another block diagonal matrix. Okay. Then when you multiply them, the answer is also, because the blocks are of compatible sizes, the answer will be a block diagonal matrix. And the answer is literally going to be the diagonal here times here, which is this, anything times 0 is 0. This times this, well, this is the identity matrix, so anything times identity is itself. And this is 2 times 3, which is 6. And you can check without, no, you can check by multiplying 2 6 by 6 matrices, that this is exactly what you get. But you don't need to. The advantage of using partition matrices or block matrices is you have all these nice kinds of things that I told you had in Galaxies. Okay, so that's probably it for today. We will stop here with block diagonal matrices and partition matrices. Next time we start the lecture with solving linear equations. The original purpose of introducing matrices in the linear algebra class is to solve systems of linear equations. So we will do that next time, but I just wanted to show you that there are advantages to using block matrices. So if you see patterns, if you see a question where a matrix has a particular block structure, try to use that structure. Is it block upper triangular? Is it block lower triangular? Can you say something about it? And so on. Okay, great. So that's it for today.